lengths would you go to for a really good meal?
Well, we had to battle the cold and the wind and everything else to get here, but it was worth it.
Some are more adventurous than others, but when you live in the Canadian Northwest, adventure is the name of the game. And at the River Cafe in Calgary, game is at least part of the adventure. Getting here is the rest. The River Cafe is smack dab right in the middle of Calgary, but you can't get there by car. The only way to get there, and I do mean the only way to get there, is by crossing a footbridge over the Bow River into the Prince's Island Park. And that is definitely part of the restaurant's charm. Owner Sal Howell says although the trip is a short one, it's very therapeutic.
Now, I think that's part of the uniqueness of the experience. You walk here, and by doing so, you leave the downtown behind. But
back in the early 1900s, before there was even a city, you couldn't escape the hustle and bustle because it was going on right here.
The island was formed as a part of the Eau Claire Lumber Company. They carved out an area on the river to capture the logs that were coming downstream, and Peter Prince developed that lumber company, and that gave the name to Prince's Island Park.
While Prince saw the river as a business opportunity, there were others who sought it for pleasure.
The Bow River is a very famous fly fishing river, and we've brought a sense of that past. I've collected fly fishing artifacts, and we have some of the trophies, the trout that you see on the walls.
As elegant as this building is now, it wasn't quite this luxurious in its previous life. From 1969 on to about the early 1990s, this was actually the park concession stand. The cuisine in those days, basically hot dogs and hamburgers. Today, this former fast food hut looks more like an upscale mountain lodge, and the cuisine, a bit more sophisticated and suited to the restaurant's natural theme.
It's very regional. What Northwest Wood-Fired Regional Cuisine is what we call it.
Most of the food is cooked over an open flame, fueled by the wood of apple, cherry, and pear trees from the region, much like the pioneers cooked more than a century ago. So for Americans who don't know better and should know better, yeah, I mean, this is the Wild West out here, right?
Yeah, probably not as wild as it used to be, but it's definitely the West, for sure.
Chef Dwayne Ennis says that traditionally game is associated with a wild and rustic lifestyle, but today it's served at five-star restaurants and is much more civilized than you might think.
It's not really wild in flavor. It's rich, it's dark.
But not gamey.
But not gamey. That's not gonna, like if somebody goes to shoot a wild deer way up in the mountains somewhere, that definitely would taste different than the game that we get.
The flavor of game meat depends on what an animal eats. Out here, they're fed grain instead of grass, which leads to a more mellow taste. But if you're gun shy at all, this appetizer is a good way to get your feet or your palate wet. This is the buffalo,
right?
The
buffalo, yeah.
Yeah, and that looks...
So it's air dried, so it's a little bit chewy and dry.
But it's not gamey at all.
It's not gamey at all.
If you're still game for more game, the venison is a sure bet. A tenderloin cut, grilled, then coated with grainy Dijon mustard. It's breaded and finished off in the oven, served with a cassoulet of rabbit, venison sausage, and sour cherries.
So, yeah, so you get the sense of the meat is not strong, it's not wild, and, but it's got a great...
It's not wild at all.
Yeah, no. It's really nice.
It's very rich, though.
Very rich, yeah.
Rich in flavor, yet lean. Not as wild tasting as you might think.
I've had the venison and I've had the duck, and both are very good, but, not too adventurous, but at the same time,
They work for you.
Yeah, they work for me.
It could work for you, too, but you've got to take the first step. Maybe you won't go as far as some others, but a little adventure certainly can't hurt.
Why not be adventurous? Try it. How can you argue against it if you haven't tried it?